Hello, everybody. Welcome to a very special bonus episode of Too Much. Today, we are trying something new. Okay, so I just got back from a trip to Italy, and I'm going to share with you about it. And at the end, you'll sort of understand what this new thing is and what we're doing. So when my parents turned 70, they requested family vacations as their gift. So we went to Morocco a couple years ago for my mom's 70th, and this year my dad turned 70, so I hauled myself to Tuscany for my dad's birthday and his borderline sociopathic obsession with wine. He is part of a elite group called the Chevalier du Vins, and he is co-cellier of his chapter. We can talk more about that offline if you're interested. This trip focused on Chianti. So growing up, touring wineries was a very common part of our family vacations, even when none of us were of drinking age. And so oddly, this trip felt more like business as usual than like a birthday trip. And so you might be like, oh, so dreamy. But the reality of this involves like military-like departures at 9 a.m., 3 wineries per day. And one day my dad tried to like not do lunch. And my mom, me and my brother's girlfriend were like, we're going to get lunch. I mean, just a different vibe, like a true wine lover. So knowing this wouldn't fully align with my definition of vacation, I set my sights on traveling somewhere afterwards. And so usually how I travel is based on intuition. Something in me will call me somewhere and I'll just submit to the call. So that version of travel has gotten me to go to so many places that feel very close to my heart. And so that intuition tends to lead me to a place of resonance. And so this year, gazing at a map of Italy, there was like no city or town that was beckoning. I was like, what if I go to Portofino? What if I go to Puglia? What if I go to Ischia? And it took a full 2 weeks of imagining myself in different places before I settled in on the Dolomites. And I'd heard the Dolomites are an easy place to seek awe. But my body finally said like, yes, that's where we must be. Which is bizarre because I'm not a nature seeker. Like, I'll hike in LA, but I'm not really like a nature girly. But my body has never told a lie. So I listened. And once I decide on a destination, I usually try and rope a friend in. But being single in your mid-30s is a challenging time for travel companions. Most of my friends have children. The single ones don't all have the budget, and those who do require intense scheduling gymnastics or they want to go somewhere different. And frankly, it's a fucking logistical mess. I don't often feel lonely, but vacation planning is one of the only times I feel a void in being single. Yet something was nagging at me that the Dolomites were just for me, which was unnerving. My last solo trip to Italy was a rather challenging one. So last time I went to Italy, I was smack dab, this is a couple years ago, in the middle of a heartbreak from a loaded betrayal. And let me tell you, Italy post-heartbreak, not recommended. Every Italian man I encountered seemed personally invested in solving the mystery of my solo travel status. Perché sei sola? They'd ask with genuine concern. Why are you alone? The phrase haunted me every 10 steps. Like these people would follow me and ask me, why are you alone? Why are you alone? Why are you alone? And so initially I'm like, I'm wondering the same thing, sir. Like, grazie mille, grazie mille. I'd reply, reaching for my limoncello spritz, and that was never enough. So they kept pressing, and I was like, I don't know. I don't fucking know. And then I'd proceed to order another spritz to deal, just like fully limoncello spritz, also gonna get you really fucked up, but it was like fully my drink that trip because I was just like, need an escape. And so the universe seemed determined to rub salt in the wound. Around every corner of Positano, someone was getting proposed to. Back home, I had DJ'd 3 weddings within 6 weeks of that breakup. It felt like a very cruel cosmic joke about my aloneness. And it was a very strange dichotomy because I'm so lucky and privileged to be in Italy. Like, I'm so grateful to be in a gorgeous, rich, delicious landscape, while simultaneously I wanted to be anywhere else. Mainly out of my skin suit. I was a raw nerve. I was crying in public. crying in bathrooms between DJ sets, gripping the side of boats like I didn't know how to swim because mentally I was drowning, and it was really confusing. And I still don't really fully understand it. Like maybe I was being pushed to find completion myself or to commit to dating differently so I wouldn't keep landing back at like a home base of lying men. So returning to Italy for the second time alone, I was curious how this experience would differ. I'm no longer clouded by heartbreak. So there's all this space. What would reveal itself? Was this a cosmic do-over? Well, the trip started off a little rocky. After nearly missing my connecting flight to Venice, I landed at the Venice airport exhausted, only to discover the rental car provider required an international driving permit, which is not standard and which I didn't have. So they refused to refund my order. After 15 minutes on the phone with booking.com, they agreed to like a partial refund. Apparently, being straight in Italy does not warrant a full refund. So I proceeded to another counter that agreed to rent me a car for double the price. So like too tired to fight, I rent the car and I head north. So this is supposed to be a 2.5 hour drive. I'm already super tired. That drive becomes 4 hours. I want to cry. I'm spent. I'm weary. And I knew this would be easier if someone else could take the steering wheel for the last hour. And so maybe Italy isn't my place. Everything is so difficult for me here. And somehow Italy is also the ultimate place of ease and leisure. Italy lives in two timelines and it exists in perpetual contradictions. One is ancient and unhurried, where time moves like honey, where nothing rushes and everything takes exactly as long as it needs to. And then there's another timeline where motorcyclists have somehow figured out how to fold space and time. They zip past with a death wish audacity and a penchant for drama and fleeting tempers. Crawling behind this bus on a mountain road that felt like it was carved by someone with a very optimistic view of what constitutes wide enough, I was wondering if this was worth it. And then I broke out at the top, and those devastating mountains of the Dolomites sprawl before me. I immediately forget the drive, the exhaustion, every life problem that plagues me, and I breathe. I pull up to my new favorite hotel where hospitality is still a thing. There's champagne in my room, a freestanding tub, and a view that will have you renounce atheism. The next day, I drive to Cortina d'Ampezzo in search of a lake. When the tunnel breaks into the open road, tears start streaming down my face. The Dolomites are beyond language, beyond comprehension. Teardrop by teardrop, these mountains remind me of one of my favorite conversations for my podcast with Dacher Keltner, who wrote a book about the science of awe. Awe is our quickest passage to interdependence. It is the great reminder that we are a single breath in the lungs of a vast living universe that inhales mountains and exhales stars. To stand in nature's glory and be overwhelmed by its majesty is one of the cheapest riches of being human. As I drive, constantly gagged by the scenery, I keep returning to the disintegration of my life as I knew it. 3 years ago, I shut down my startup, a monster that had consumed me for 7 years with very little room for anything else. I shut it down and subsequently I shut down. The floor evaporated beneath me. I was free falling with nothing to grab onto and no clue whether I was ascending into hell, wonderland, or like some dream beyond my imagination's reach. I spent those 3 years in a cocoon, reclaiming things that I'd loved, but I'd been told I wasn't gifted in. So voice lessons and a writing coach slowly helped me find my floor. As I stare into the crisp, detergent blue Lago de Brace, Every goosebump transmutes into gratitude. The wheels had to come off the bus. I had to surrender to that terrifying free fall, because without it, I never would have excavated my actual values from the rubble and built this life. One where I know peace that doesn't need to be justified. Presence isn't scheduled. Joy that exists for its own sake. And the kind of awe that rewrites your entire nervous system. None of it was accessible when I was on an autopilot, working my way through the Sims-like simulation of success, the endless hamster wheel of making money to make more money. Humans were meant for so much more than that suffocating trap. On my third day, I meet up with Gilbert, the hotel's hiking guide. Born and raised in Castelroto, Italy, a town of 6,800 people. We tackle a vertical incline to the top of a mountain that has a cable car running to the summit, so you can imagine the steepness. He's surprised I'm fit and can keep a good pace. He asked me what I do, and I literally just say Pilates and walking. When we reach the top, we stop for a tea. He tells me about his former life in banking, and so pre-COVID, he worked in finance, and when COVID hit, he reassessed his life and became a hiking guide. And so every day, he communes with nature. His office is God's church. My friend got married in Woodstock at her family's house, and her dad, when he officiated their wedding or he gave his speech, he said, they had met hiking in what he calls God's church. And this whole trip, all I could think about was how nature truly is God's church. So Gilbert asked me what I do for a living, and I launch into my weird multi-hyphenate explanation: writer, podcaster, speaker, DJ. He listens super intently, and then he looks at me and he says, "It takes courage to do what you do." The word courage rolling off his tongue, more like corsage, but I catch the drift. I tell him that most people have checked out of their lives, that they're sleepwalking through routines they never consciously chose. And at one point I was the same, but I'm checking in now, and so is he. What he didn't know is that I'm working on a talk about the courage to create. In our culture, life in the arts needs to be defended, sadly. I have to believe there's more to life than making money your God for some future version of living when the living can happen right now. Gilbert and I couldn't live more different lives. Him rooted in this small mountain town, me scattered across cities and stages, yet somehow we'd ended up on top of this mountain, having stumbled upon the exact same human truth. On the way down, I ask him if nature has ever made him cry, because all I was doing was crying all week about the beauty. And he says, "Oh yes, Denise, I get very emotional." When we land back at the hotel, he says, "I hope we will meet again." And I believe he means it. I'm a meaning maker. I always have been. I'd been seeking an epiphany while I was in the Dolomites, a breakthrough, big or small, didn't really matter. I wanted to see what unclouded stillness would reveal. On the way down that mountain, it came to me, a simple ask: to keep having the courage to fight for a creative life, to keep checking into being alive. And funnily enough, I didn't feel alone once. It also nudged me to share this with you, to share some of these essays that I write for myself or for my future talks. And so here we are, solo podcast episode number 1. And the text of this you can find on my newly launched Substack. And there will be more of these to come if you like them. And so I want to leave you with this, which is, I hope you seek nature, even if you never have before, that you check in to your life, and even more, that you are given a cosmic do-over. See you guys next week.